Now, several laps into the session, Adam Tyus looks to refine their line and timing. Nearly an hour still on the clock for this session. Plenty of time for Nigel Walters to get that car dialed in before he goes for flyer.
Tyus is taking his time in the garage, probably tweaking the damper settings, or just letting the track rubber in a bit before he commits to a full push lap.
Walters puts a marker down early, a minute 21.9, and he goes straight to the top of the timing screens.
Decent baseline for Nigel, but there's a lot of track evolution still to come. I'd expect that time to tumble once the fuel loads start coming down.
Still no time on the board for Dominic Fauvargue with 50 minutes to go. He's keeping us waiting while the rest of the field gets their eye in. Daniel Koshis hasn't posted a time yet. He's sitting tight while the track surface starts to come to life.
He might be waiting for the grip levels to stabilize. There's no point burning through a set of tires when the circuit is still this green.
Still no sign of a timed lap from Dominic Fauvargue. The clock is ticking down toward that 45-minute mark.
He's losing valuable data. Every minute he spends in the pits is a minute he's not learning where the limit is today. You can't simulate seat time.
Walters is finding more time out there, shaving another half a second off his best to stay firmly in P1.
He's looking very clinical. Notice how he's hitting every apex with surgical precision. That car looks like it's on rails right now.
Koshis is still a ghost on the timing screens as we approach the midpoint of this session.
It's a bold strategy. If he's got a mechanical gremlin, the crew is going to be sweating. Because you don't want to be playing catch-up when qualifying rolls around.
We're still waiting for Fauvargue to show his hand here 14 minutes into the session, and his sector times are still blank.
You have to wonder if there's a technical hiccup behind the scenes. In my experience, if you're not out there now, you're usually fighting a leak or an electronics glitch.
Still no lap recorded for Daniel Koshis, and that garage door is staying firmly shut for the time being.
This is getting critical for Fauvargue now. If he doesn't get out there soon, he's going to be guessing at his brake markers when the sessions start to count.
We are well past the 15-minute mark, and still nothing from Corsa. He is cutting it fine if he wants to get a proper long run in. Finally, Fovargu hits the track and immediately puts himself onto the front row with a 122.9.
He didn't need long to find the rhythm. Straight into second place, though he's still about a second and a half off Walters' pace.
Kosis is the lone holdout now, still hasn't posted a time while everyone else is out there pounding the pavement.
He's giving away a massive advantage. While his rivals are figuring out where the bumps are and how the tires are wearing, he's just watching the monitors.
Bogart holds onto that second spot for now, but that gap to the front is still a cavernous 1.5 seconds.
He's likely just scrubbing in a set of tires or checking the brake balance on that lap. There's definitely more time to be found in the middle sector.
Kukatis finally joins the party, slotting into third with a 125.4.
He's 4 seconds off the pace of Walters, so that was clearly just the systems check. Expect him to start leaning on the car much harder on this next flyer. Fovargu is staying consistent with that time, but he needs to start trimming the fat off those entries if he wants to close the gap to Walters.
Now, several laps into the session, Daniel Kosick looks to refine their line and timing. Fovargu is still sitting on that 22.9. He's been in P2 for a while now, but the track is getting faster.
He might be back in the lane for some setup tweaks. When you're a second and a half back, you aren't looking for tenths. You're looking for a fundamental change in how the car rotates.
Kokasis finds a tiny bit more time, trimming his best down to a 125.3, but he's still stuck in third. Walters is still the benchmark with that 121.3, and nobody has been able to lay a glove on him yet. Gareth Hallam is still a non-starter on the timing tower as we tick under 40 minutes remaining in the session.
There we go. Fovargo finds a massive chunk of time, getting down into the 21.9s. Now he's actually within striking distance of Nigel.
Walters is out on track again, likely watching Fovarg's improvement and getting ready to respond. Fovarg is really starting to find his feet now. That gap to Walters is down to just about half a second.
He's much more aggressive over the curbs now. You can see he's stopped tentative driving and is starting to trust the arrow to stick. Walters is still the man to beat, but that cushion he had at the start of the session is definitely starting to evaporate.
Kokes has actually slipped down to fourth now. He hasn't made any significant gains while the others are finding more speed. Nigel Walters remains perched at the top of the standings. 36 minutes left for someone to try and knock him off his perch. Wait, where did Ben Naden come from? He jumped straight into second place with a 1:21.6.
That's a huge lap. He's split Walters and Fovarg, sitting only 0.3 off the lead. He's found the sweet spot with the tire pressures early on.
John Boontakis puts his first representative lap together, a 1:22.5, good enough for fifth for now.
Solid start for John. He's about a second off the pace, which tells me he's likely running a heavier fuel load to see how the car behaves in race conditions.
Corsa is falling down the order like a stone, now sitting in sixth and still over 4 seconds off Walters.
He's definitely not chasing a headline time. When you're that far back, you're either testing fuel consumption or you've got a setup that is seriously fighting you.
Bounticus holds onto 5th. He's looking tidy through the technical sections, just missing that raw top-end speed the leaders seem to have. Fovargu finds a few hundredths, down to a 1:21.9, but it's not enough to move him back up in the second.
He's plateauing a bit. Every driver has a natural, safe pace, and it looks like Dominic has found his. He's going to have to take some risks to find those extra 0.3.
Jareth Hallam finally makes his presence felt. He jumps into P5 with 122.3.
Not a bad entry at all, considering how long he sat in the pits. He's ahead of Bountikis now, and looks to have a very stable car under braking.
Cushis finally finds a bit of rhythm. He brings it down to a 123.7, moving up slightly in pace, even if the position hasn't changed.
Fovargu is chipping away at it, just a few hundredths quicker on that last pass. He's found something in the final sector that's keeping him in the hunt with Nadine.
Walters isn't waiting around for the pack to catch up. He smashes his own best down to a 121 flat.
He's making a statement. That's 0.3 clear of anyone else. When you see a driver finding time like that mid-session, it usually means they've found the perfect compromise on the wing settings.
Bounticus finds another 0.4, moving himself up into 4th place with a 122.1.
He's slowly reeling in that top 3. If he can keep this momentum through the next few laps, he might just bridge that gap to Fovarg.
Hallam is holding steady in 5th. He's about 0.2 back from Bountakis now as we hit the 30-minute mark.
Constable Barry slots into 6th. A 123.2 is a decent starting point, but he's got over 2 seconds to find if he wants to challenge Walters at the front.
Fovargu is still stuck in those 21.8s, unable to find the extra gear needed to move up from 3rd.
He might be hitting a bit of a wall with the tire temps. If you push too hard in this heat, the rears just start to slide, and you lose all that drive coming out of the slow corners.
Still no time on the board for Adam Tyus, and we are officially into the final half hour of this practice session.
This is cutting it dangerously thin. If he has any kind of issue on his outlap, he's going into the competitive sessions with zero data on how these tires are holding up.
Walters is still the king of the mountain with that 21 flat, watching the rest of the field try and fail to match his pace.
Constable Barry drops a spot down to 7th. He's going to need to find a way to get that car rotating better in the mid-corner if he wants to climb back up the timing tower.
Kokexis is down in 8th now, nearly 3 seconds off the pace, and he doesn't look like he has an answer for the front runners yet.
Fovarg's back in the pits, probably looking at the telemetry to see exactly where Walters is beating him through the high-speed stuff.
Naden remains the closest challenger to Walters, holding that P2 spot by about 2/10 over Fovarg. Tyus finally joins the session and makes an immediate impact, flying straight into 4th with a 22.1.
Talk about making up for lost time. To jump in that late and get within a second of Nigel on your first flyer shows a massive amount of confidence in the car's balance.
Hallam gets pushed down to 6th by those improving times. The midfield is starting to get very crowded as we enter the final third of practice.
A 22.7 for David Constable Barry puts him 7th. It's a solid lap, but he's still looking for that extra half second to get into the mix with Tyus and Hallam.
Nadine isn't improving his time at the moment, but he's showing some really consistent sectors which will serve him well in the race.
Koshis is all the way down in 10th now. He's really struggling to find the pace that he usually shows. Looks like he's fighting some serious understeer through the long corners.
David Constable-Berry drops another spot to 8th. The session is really starting to ramp up now as everyone gets their final runs in.
The track temperature is likely peaking right now. If he hasn't found his setup yet, it's only going to get harder as the tarmac starts to get greasy.
Neil Constable-Berry is sitting in 9th, and he's got quite a bit of work to do to close the 6/10 gap to his namesake, David.
Tyus finds a couple of tenths to get into the 21.9s, but he's actually dropped to 6th. That just shows you how much the field is improving right now.
Kosas is still anchored in P10. That 123.7 just isn't going to cut it as the rest of the pack begins to find their rhythm. Varg is sliding down the order. He was on the front row earlier, and now he's all the way down in 6th.
He hasn't improved in a while. I suspect he's swapped over to a race trim setup, running more fuel and harder tires, to see how the balance shifts over a long stint.
Neil Constable-Berry is still looking for a way to break into the 122 bracket, currently stuck in 9th.
He's oversteering on the exits of the slow stuff. He needs to be a bit more patient with the throttle, or he'll just keep cooking those rear tires before he even finishes the lap.
Hallam finds a chunk of time to get into the 21.8s, moving up just enough to put himself 6th on the grid for now.
"20 minutes to go, and Robert Cormack is finally climbing into the cockpit. He's going to have to get up to speed immediately to have any impact on this session.
Adam Tyus has set a best lap time of 1:21.938 so far.
As the session progresses, Adam Tyus is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Wait, look at the timing tower. Joel Lemrich has absolutely come out of nowhere to snatch P1 away from Walters by just 0.06 of a second. Koshis remains in 10th, and that gap to the front has now blown out to over 2.5 seconds, thanks to Lemrich's flyer.
It's a tough pill to swallow. When you see the top guys dipping into the 21s and you're still in the 23s, it's easy to start overdriving. He needs to reset and find a rhythm.
Tyus is currently sitting in 8th, and even though he's in the 21.9s, he's nearly a second off Lemrich in the benchmark.
This field is incredibly tight. 1 second covers almost the entire top 8. If Tyus can just find another 2/10, he'll jump 3 or 4 spots up the order.
That's more like it from Kotsis. He finds over a second to jump into the 22.5s, moving up into 9th place.
Howland is holding his own in 7th. He's been consistently in that 21.8 window, which shows he's found a setup he can really lean on.
Walters has been demoted to 2nd, and you can bet he won't be happy about Lemrich stealing his thunder by such a tiny margin.
He's out on a fresh set of boots right now. You can see the aggression in the way he's attacking the entry to the corners. He wants that top spot back.
Kokaxis drops back down to 10th as the rest of the field continues to lower the floor this session.
Chris Stokes is leaving it very late to get any meaningful running done. With only 16 minutes left, he'll be lucky to get more than 5 or 6 flying laps in.
Lemrich is still holding that top spot as we head into the final 15 minutes of practice. It's a fantastic lap that's standing the test of time. Huge improvement for David Constable-Barry. He jumps into 5th with a 1:21.6.
That puts him right in the mix with Nadine and Fovargo. He's finally found the traction he was missing earlier in the session.
Tyus finds a fraction more time, but he's still lingering in 8th place.
He's hitting his marks, but the car looks a little stiff over the curbs. If he can soften that up, he might find the half second he needs to get toward the front.
Lemrich just moved the goalposts. He breaks into the 120s with a 20.7, extending his lead over the field.
Hallam is holding steady in 7th, but he's now over a second adrift of the blistering pace Lemrich is setting at the top.
Constable Barry stays in 5th for now, looking very composed as he starts another flying lap.
Walters needs to find 3/10 to get back on terms with Lemrich. I've seen him do it before, but the track might be getting a bit too warm for that kind of pace now.
Cormac finally gets a time on the board, slotting into 12th with a 1:23.7.
Stokes didn't waste any time. Straight into 9th place with a 22.0. That's an impressive way to start your session with only 10 minutes left.
Lemrich is making this look easy. He's sitting in the pits now, watching to see if anyone can even get close to that 20.7. Neil Constable Barry finds a decent chunk of time moving into the 22.3s, but he remains 10th.
He's cleaning up his lines. You can see he's taking a much wider entry into the final turn to maximize his exit speed onto the straight.
Minutes remaining. Hallam is still in 7th, and the pressure is on to find those final few tenths before the session ends.
Buntakis moves up to 4th. That's a great lap. A 1:21.4, putting him right on the heels of the podium places.
Tyus is currently 8th. He's been very consistent, but he just seems to be missing that ultimate peak grip that the leaders are exploiting. Cosis has been bumped down to 11th now as the late flyers start to come in.
It's tough when you think you've made progress, only to see your name sliding further down the screen. He needs one more big push before the flag drops.
Hallam finds another 3/10. He moves up to 6th with a 21.5.
He's really getting that car to rotate now. I've noticed he's being much more aggressive with his trail braking into the hairpins.
Stokes is on a charge. He moves up to 7th, just a fraction behind Hallam now. What a lap from Jareth Hallam. He rockets up to 3rd place, a 121.1.
That came out of nowhere. He's almost matched Walter's best time. He must have found a massive amount of time in the middle sector.
Neil Constable Barry is hanging on to 10th place by his fingernails with just over 6 minutes left.
He's struggling for traction on the exit of the slow corners. If he doesn't fix that, he's going to be a sitting duck on the straights during the race.
Cormac finds a whole second to get down to a 22.6, but he stays 12th for the moment.
He's gaining confidence. You can see it in how he's using all of the road on the exit of the turns. He's definitely not done yet.
Walters is still chasing that top spot, but Lemrich's 20.7 is looking more and more like the definitive lap of the session.
Constable Barry is back on track for one final run. He really needs to break into that 121 bracket to feel safe in the top 10.
David Constable Barry improves again. He moves up to 4th with a 21.3, showing some serious late session pace. Four minutes left, and Lemrich is just observing from the garage. He's done his job today, and it's up to everyone else to respond. Cochise is still outside the top 10 as we approach the final few minutes.
He needs to find about 2/10 to catch Neil Constable Barry. It's all about putting 3 clean sectors together now. No room for mistakes.
Holm is looking secure in third. He's really found something today that's allowed him to bridge the gap to the established frontrunners. Cormac is out for one last roll of the dice, still sitting in 12th, but finding more rhythm with every tour.
He started so late that he's essentially doing his qualifying simulation now. The track is at its most rubbered in, so this is his best chance to climb. Jareth is staying out there, maybe practicing his lines for the start of the race. He's got a great view from third place if he can keep it.
Tyas makes a late move. He jumps up to fourth with a 21.2, a great recovery after his late start to the session. Just 1 minute remaining and Stokes is down in 8th. He's got one more flyer to try and move up.
He's got to be perfect. The tires will be just starting to go over the cliff on their peak grip, so he's got to be very precise with his inputs here.
Kochexis is on his final lap of the session. It's now or never if he wants to break into that top 10 before the flag falls. And that's the checkered flag for practice. Neil Constable-Barry holds on to 10th place as the session concludes. Walters is still giving it everything on his final lap, but he's running out of road to catch Lemrick before the clock hits 0.
Stokes is deep into his final effort now. He's got to find about 2/10 if he wants to leapfrog Fauvargue and snatch 7th.
One last push for Coxis as he crosses the line to start his final flyer. He's got exactly 60 seconds to make it count. There are just over 5 minutes left in this qualification session. Clock is ticking, and Jareth Hallam is still biding his time in the garage while the rest of the field find their rhythm.
He needs to get moving. In a 6-minute sprint, you only get 1 or 2 bites of the cherry before the tires start to drop off. Cabezas is cutting it incredibly fine here. Half the session is gone, and he hasn't put a banker lap on the board yet.
Ben Naden is leaving it late, less than 3 minutes to go, and he's just now heading out to find some clean air. John Bountick is really playing a game of chicken with the clock now, barely 2.5 minutes left to make it count.
He's banking on the track, being at its fastest right at the death, but 1 yellow flag or a bit of traffic, and his qualifying is cooked.
Bountakis crosses the line, but that's a scrub lap. He's sitting dead last and 12th with the clock rapidly winding down.
He must have exceeded track limits. Now the pressure is well and truly on. He's only got time for 1 more push, and his tires will be well past their best.
Ben Naden is absolutely flying on this lap, already over a second up on his previous best, as he hunts for a spot further up the grid. Naden improves his time with a 1:23.5, but it's not enough to move the needle. He's still stuck in 7th.
He found half a second there, but the track evolution is helping everyone else too. He's running out of time to find that extra bit of pace needed for the front rows. McCormack is right on his own personal best. He's found a great rhythm, but he needs to find a tiny bit more in the final sector to jump up from P6.
Montakis is right on the bubble, matching his best pace to the 1,000th as the final seconds of this session bleed away.
He needs to stop looking at the dash and just drive. Matching a 1:23.1 won't move him up. He has to find a 10th from somewhere to break into the top 6.
Jareth Hallam is already on pole, but he isn't backing off, nearly 2/10 up on his own benchmark.
He's twisting the knife now. When you're in that zone, you don't care about the gap to P2, you're just chasing perfection.
Nadine is on an absolute tear here, over a full second faster than his best, and he's going to cross the line just as the flag falls.
Fauvargue has left it far too late. Unless he's already deep into this lap, he's looking at a start from the very back of the pack.
Unbelievable. Dominic Fauvargue comes out of nowhere at the final whistle to snatch pole position with a stunning 121.4. Adam Tyus is cutting it dangerously close. Still hasn't put a time on the board with 40 seconds remaining.
He's got one shot. If he makes a mistake at the first corner, that's it. He'll be starting from the car park.
Montakis is currently languishing in 12th, but look at the timing screen. He is half a second up on his personal best.
He had to find something special, and he is doing it. If he keeps this tidy through the final sector, he'll vault right into the mid-pack. He's crossed the line, but that 123.1 hasn't shifted him from the bottom of the pile. He's got to find more pace, or he's starting on the back row.
Dominic Fovarg aims to turn pole into a win.
The race is long. Dominic Fovarg can't celebrate yet.
Joel Lemrick is sitting pretty on pole in that radical SR3. A massive opportunity here for the Dutchman to show the pro field how it is done. Right alongside him, Chris Stokes is looming large in the mirrors, looking to represent the pro class and spoil Lemrick's party.
Stokes won't give him an inch. He knows that XXR is a momentum car, so he'll be looking to outbrake the amateur into turn 1 and dictate the pace from the start.
Adam Tyus rounds out the top 5, and keep an eye on him. He has a habit of finding gaps where others see walls. Lining up in 6th, we have David Constable Barry, lead car for the Pro-Am contingent today.
6th is a tricky spot to start here. He is right in the middle of the mid-pack chaos, so he needs to be decisive the moment those lights go out, or he'll get swallowed up.
Ben Nadine occupies the 4th row, and he'll be looking to make up ground early in that State Route 3.
He's got a lot of hungry drivers right on his gearbox. If I'm not in, I'm focusing entirely on getting those rear tires up to temperature on the warm-up lap so he can launch it.
Further back in 9th, Daniel Kosic will be hoping to use that Pro-Am experience to slice through the field as the race settles down. Closing out the top 10, Nigel Walters is in the thick of it.
10 cars back, you're dealing with a lot of turbulent air. Walters needs to find clean air fast if he wants to keep those front tires from washing out in the corners.
Robert Cormack starts from 11th, just outside that top 10 bubble, and looking for any opening the start might provide. And rounding out the 6th row, the Greek driver John Bountakis will be looking to keep his nose clean and capitalize on any early mistakes ahead. Green flag. The Radicals scream off the line, and Lemrich gets a decent launch, but Stokes is already pulling alongside.
Look at the bravery into the first braking zone. Everyone's fighting for the same piece of tarmac. This is where you find out who's really done their homework on cold brakes.
Dominic Fovargu has fended off the initial charge and holds onto that lead as they scream through the opening lap.
He nailed the placement of his car. When you're leading into the first few corners, it's all about hitting your marks and not letting the mirrors distract you from the apex.
Tough start for Chris Stokes, who's dropped a spot and is now sitting in 4th.
He got squeezed out. Once you lose your momentum in these radicals, it's like a chain reaction. You're just a passenger, while the cars behind capitalize on your loss of speed.
David Constable Barry is the big winner in that opening shuffle, picking up a place to move into 5th. Constable Barry is making moves early, snatching 5th place away before the first lap is even in the books.
He spotted the gap and didn't hesitate. In a pack this tight, if you see a door left slightly ajar, you have to kick it down immediately.
Wait, Constable Barry has tumbled down the order to 8th, and he's tucked right under the rear wing of Daniel Kosic with only a 10th between them. Lemrick is hounding Fauvargue for the lead. He is just 3/10 back with 9 minutes on the clock and everything to play for. Neil Constable-Berry is falling back further, now in 9th, and trying to cling to the back of Robert Cormack, who's got a half-second cushion.
He's struggling to find a rhythm after that earlier drop. At this stage, you've got to stop the bleeding, settle the car down, and stop making those small errors that are costing him time.
Disaster for Neil Constable-Berry. He's plummeted to 11th, and that gap to Cormack has blown out to nearly 5 seconds.
This field is incredibly restless today. It's that radical SR3. It feels like a go-kart on steroids, and it baits you into lunging for gaps that aren't quite there.
It really does, and when you see someone like Constable-Berry drop 5 seconds in a single sector, you know there's been a massive moment of overambition.
Exactly. I remember racing prototypes in similar conditions. You try to carry 5 miles per hour more through a sweep, the rear snaps, and suddenly you're a lawnmower.
And once you're off the line and onto the marbles, it's a nightmare trying to get the power back down without spinning the wheels.
The psychological hit is worse than the time loss, honestly. You're fuming in the cockpit, and that's when you start missing your braking points by 10 meters.
Well, let's see if the mid-pack can settle the nerves, because at this rate, the podium contenders are going to be out of sight by the halfway mark. Daniel Kosick is hunting down 5th place, putting in a personal best to get within a second of Nigel Walters.
He's definitely found his flow. That 1 minute 24 seconds and 1 millisecond shows he's got the pace, but closing a 9/10 gap is one thing. Actually finding a way past Walters is a different beast entirely.
Kosick moves up into 5th. It looks like there's been a shakeup ahead because Walters is still in front of him, but they've both gained a spot.
Somebody ahead must have made a mistake or taken a trip to the scenery. Kosick won't care how he got there, but he's now got over a second to make up if he wants to challenge Walters for 4th.
Robert Cormack is absolutely flying, setting his fastest lap of the race as he hunts down Joel Lemrich, the gap sitting just over a second. Check the timing screens. David Constable-Berry is in 4th, but Daniel Kosick is practically under his gearbox. There is no air between them.
0-0 on the gap. Kosick is shadowing every move, looking to force a mistake. This is where you have to be so disciplined with your mirrors. Look once, then get your eyes back on the apex.
Wait, Constable-Berry has completely fallen away. He's dropped back to 7th, and Kosick has checked out with a 5-second lead.
He must have had a moment, or went wide. To lose that much time in one sequence suggests a big slide or a trip across the grass. He's got a mountain to climb now.
Down in 11th, Neil Constable-Berry has found some pace with a new personal best, but Jareth Hallam is still nearly 3 seconds up the road.
It's a lonely race for him right now. When you're in that mid-pack no man's land, it's so easy for the concentration to dip. He needs to keep hitting those marks as if Hallam was right in front of him.
Nigel Walters is right on the tail of Lemrich. Less than half a second separates these two in the fight for the final podium spot.
Walters is sizing him up. He's taking a slightly different line through the complex, trying to get a better run onto the straight. Lemrich can feel the heat now.
Walters has slipped back a position to 5th, and the gap to Lemrich has opened up to nearly a full second.
He tried to force the issue, and it's cost him. He's not only lost the slipstream to Lemrich, but he's let someone else through in the process. Classic case of greed overreaching the grip available.
Adam Tyus is closing in on David Constable-Berry, just 0.6 back, and setting his fastest lap of the session.
Tyus has the bit between his teeth. He's found a rhythm in that State Route 3 that Constable-Berry just doesn't seem to have right now. This battle for 7th is about to get very interesting.
Tyus has lost ground. The gap to Constable-Berry has doubled, and he's now over a second adrift.
You push too hard. You see it all the time. You get close, you lose a bit of front-end downforce in the dirty air, and suddenly you're washing wide and losing all that hard-earned time.
David Constable-Berry is struggling out there with a slow 1:32, but he's somehow still within a second of Cormack for 6th place. Walters is trying to claw his way back toward Daniel Kosick, sitting 7/10 behind as we head into the final 4 minutes.
He's got to be careful. That last lap was 2 seconds off his best. His tires might be starting to protest after all that wheel-to-wheel action earlier.
Walters is reeling him in. He's hacked 3/10 off that gap and is right on the tail of Kosick again.
This is a proper seesaw battle. Kosick is starting to look vulnerable in the braking zones, and Walters is sniffing blood. He's definitely found a second wind.
David Constable-Berry is on an absolute flyer. He just set his best lap of the race and is only 3/10 behind Cormac now.
Talk about a recovery. To go from a 32-second lap to a 22 is immense. He's found his pace again, and Cormac is right in his crosshairs.
Walters continues to stalk Kosick, maintaining that 4/10 gap as they charge through lap 5. Not much change there. Walters has just eased back slightly, now half a second behind as Kosick defends that 4th position with everything he's got. Robert Cormac has been jumped by Constable-Berry and is now the one doing the chasing, half a second back in 7th. Constable-Berry is starting to pull away from Cormac now, stretching that gap out toward a full second. Walters is back in the hunt. A personal best lap has him just 3/10 behind Kosick as the clock ticks down.
He's using every inch of the curbs now. You can see the car dancing on the limit. He knows he hasn't got many laps left to make this move stick.
He's done it. Nigel Walters makes the move on Kosick to take 4th, but it is a dead heat as they run side by side. Kosick isn't letting Walters go. He's just 4/10 back and just posted his own fastest lap of the race.
This is brilliant racing. Kosick lost the place, but he stayed calm, tucked into the slipstream, and he's waiting for Walters to overcook it into one of these tight bends.
Stalemate for now. Kosick is still glued to the back of Walters, the gap holding steady at 4/10.
Walters has widened his car out. He's taking the defensive lines, forcing Kosick to try the long way round, which is exactly what you have to do with the clock running out.
Adam Tyus moves up into 7th with a blistering 1 minute 22 seconds and 5 milliseconds, leaving Robert Cormac 7/10 behind in his wake. Daniel Kosick has dropped another spot to 6th, now 7/10 behind David Constable-Berry after a slower lap through that last tour. Wait, Constable-Berry has moved further up to 4th, and Kosick is desperately trying to stay with him, trailing by just over half a second.
The track temperature must be shifting because we are seeing some wild fluctuations in lap times this late in the race.
It's a chess match at 140 miles per hour. One lap you're the hunter, the next you're defending for your life.
I love watching how these drivers handle the dirty air in these radicals. They've got just enough downforce to be fast, but not enough to be comfortable when they're tucked under a rear wing.
And you can see that in the mistakes. One tiny lockup and you're gifting 2 positions away. There's no room for error when the field is this tight.
That's the beauty of this class though. It's pure driving. No driver aids to save you when you get it wrong, just you and your right foot.
We've seen Constable-Berry go from 0 to 0 and back again. It shows that you can never count anyone out until the checkered flag drops. Adam Tyus is holding on to 6th place, but he's got his work cut out for him with Daniel Kosick over a second up the road. The gap remains locked at 1.3 seconds. Tyus is matching Kosick's pace, but matching him isn't going to get him that 5th place. Robert Cormack is currently sitting in 7th, but he's losing touch with Adam Tyus as that gap stretches out to over a second and a half. Tyus has moved up to 5th, and the gap to Cormack has grown even wider, now approaching 2 seconds. Joel Lemrich is comfortably in 3rd, putting in a rapid 1 minute, 21 seconds, and 6 milliseconds to keep Constable Barry over 6 seconds behind him.
He's in a groove now. With a gap that large, it's all about managing the machinery and making sure he doesn't do anything silly on the curves. He's got this podium spot in his pocket if he stays focused.
Daniel Kosick is all over the back of Adam Tyus. Despite a slow lap, he's managed to close right up to within 0.3.
Tyus must have made a mistake in that last sector to let Kosick back into the fight like this. This is the closest battle on track right now, and Kosick is smelling an opportunity to reclaim 5th.
Dominic Fovarg is 20 seconds away from glory, holding a commanding 3-second lead over Chris Stokes as he approaches the final few corners. Dominic Fovarg takes the checkered flag, a flawless lights-to-flag victory for the pole sitter. He didn't put a foot wrong all afternoon. Chris Stokes brings it home in 2nd, a hard-earned podium for him after starting back in 3rd.
Solid drive from Stokes. He didn't quite have the pace to bridge that 3-second gap at the end, but he kept the pressure on and secured those vital championship points.
And what a recovery from David Constable Barry. He crosses the line in 3rd to take the final step on the podium after starting way back in 6th. The rest of the pack filters through with Lemrich taking 4th, followed by Tyus, Kosick, and Cormack rounding out the top 7.
That battle between Tyus and Kosick went right to the wire. Looks like Tyus just managed to hold him off. Great grit shown by those mid-pack drivers today. They never stopped fighting.
Walters, Hallam, Bontakis, and Neil Constable Barry complete the field as they cross the line in quick succession.
Tough day at the office for Neil, finishing at the back after such a promising start. But that's racing. You take the lessons, forget the frustration, and move on to the next one.
Neil Constable Barry has the inside track from pole. John Bounticus looking sharp on the front row. That Radical is a weapon in the right hands.
Starting P2 in the State Route 3 is a huge opportunity for an AM driver. He needs to keep those rear tires warm on the formation lap, or he'll be a sitting duck at the lights.
Right behind Boontakis, Jareth Hallam is lurking in third, looking to show the Pro-Am pace in that British-built Radical.
Hallam won't be patient. He knows the State Route 3 requires total commitment on the brakes, and he will be looking to exploit any hesitation from the guys ahead the second the green flag drops.
Robert Cormack rounds out the top 5, putting another British flag on the grid in that State Route 3.
He is in a bit of a sandwich there. Starting mid-pack in these high downforce cars is nerve-wracking, because the air gets so turbulent. He needs a clean launch to stay with the lead group.
Adam Tyus is sitting down in 7th, right in the thick of the mid-pack scrap.
P7 is a dangerous place to be in a Radical. It's so easy to get boxed in. Tyus has to be decisive the moment he sees a gap, or he'll get swallowed up by the back of the field.
Constable Barry starts from 9th, and you know he's going to be aggressive to make up that ground early on.
He's got the Pro-Am experience to pick his way through, but starting that far back, he's got to pray nobody gets it wrong ahead of him. There's no room to maneuver if it kicks off in the opening complex.
Check out Chris Stokes in 10th. That is a lot of work ahead for a pro-class driver.
Stokes is completely out of position. He'll be fuming under that helmet, but he has to stay clinical. He's got the raw pace to carve through this field, but he can't afford to get his nose clipped while trying to force the issue.
Green flag. The Radicals scream off the line, and Bounticus has had a flyer.
Look at Stokes. He is already looking for the gaps. Everyone is squeezed up tight. Nobody wants to get an inch into the first braking zone.
Neil Constable Barry holds his nerve and keeps that lead into the opening lap.
Perfect execution. He hit his marks and kept the car wide, giving no one a sniff of a gap in those opening corners.
Nigel Walters has come out swinging, vaulting up 2 spots into 2nd.
He read the start perfectly. While everyone else was busy looking at each other, Walters just picked his line and committed. That is a massive gain on lap 1.
Walters is on a mission. He's snatched P2 and he's not looking back.
He sniffed out the gap and just went for it. Jumping from 4th to 2nd before the first lap is done puts him in a serious position to dictate this race.
Dominic Fobarg is making moves early. He's already sliced his way up into 9th.
He's keeping his head while others are scrambling. Making up 2 places on the opening lap is exactly how you build a result from the back half of the grid.
Hallam's holding on to 3rd, but look at Tyus. He's surged up the order and is within 4 tenths.
Tyus has come from nowhere to cut down Jareth. He's found massive pace in the opening lap, but passing in a State Route 3 is another story when they're this evenly matched.
Fovarg is glued to the gearbox of Constable Barry, just 2/10 of it as we head into the second lap.
He's got his eyes on 8th place. With 9 minutes on the clock, Dominic knows he needs to make this move stick now, before that lead group disappears up the road.
Fovarg has gained another spot, but David Constable Barry is right there in his sights, just 3/10 ahead.
These two are trading paint for 7th. Constable Barry is under massive pressure now. He's got to hit every apex, or Dominic is going to pounce.
Daniel Kosick is absolutely hounding Fovarg. There's barely a 10th between them.
Kosick is forcing him to defend the inside line. In these radicals, that's going to hurt Fovarg's exit speed, and Daniel is poised to take full advantage.
Kosick has fought his way up into 8th, and he's not letting Fovarg catch a breath.
He's keeping him honest. 3/10 is just close enough to keep the guy in front staring at his mirrors instead of the track, and Daniel is driving like a man possessed right now.
Fovarg is on an absolute tear, up to 5th, and stalking the back of Stokes.
3/10 back from a pro driver like Stokes? Dominic is driving the wheels off that car. He just clocked a 1:23.3, so the pace is definitely there.
Stokes is finally finding some breathing room, stretching that gap over Fovarg to over half a second.
Chris is using his pro experience to settle into a rhythm. Dominic's still in touch, but that 6/10 gap means he's lost that immediate slipstream effect.
Kosick is hovering in 6th, right on Fovarg's tail with only 3/10 between them.
He's keeping the pressure piled on. When you're that close through the high-speed stuff, you're just waiting for the car in front to over-rotate or miss a shift.
Stokes has got the back of Constable Barry. That battle for the final podium spot is heating up.
Chris is the faster driver on paper, but David's making that radical as wide as a bus. 4/10 is nothing at these speeds. One slip up and the pro will be through.
Constable Barry has managed to break the toe, pulling 7/10 clear of Stokes.
That's a massive response from David. He's found a bit of extra grip from somewhere to pull that gap out, making it much harder for Stokes to plan a dive into the next heavy braking zone.
Constable Barry is flying. He's just set his personal best, and he's less than half a second behind Tyus for P2.
He's really found his groove now. That 1:22.7 is a statement. Adam Tyus can probably hear that engine behind him, and it's going to be a real test of nerves for him to stay ahead.
Hellam's dropped back to 7th, and he's chasing Kosick, trying to bridge that half-second gap.
Jarrett's pace has dipped slightly on that last lap, nearly 4 seconds off his personal best. He's got to refocus because Kosick is vulnerable if Hallam can just find that 1:24 rhythm again.
Tyus has slipped to 5th, but he's got over a second of breathing room over Hallam behind him.
He's still lapping consistently in the 23s, but he's lost touch with the lead pack. He needs to stop the bleeding here and keep his eyes forward if he wants to salvage a podium today.
Something's gone wrong for Tyus. He's plummeted to 8th, and Jarrett Hallam is nearly 7 seconds up the road now.
That's a huge drop-off. He must have had a moment or a trip through the gravel because you don't lose 6 seconds like that on pure pace. He's got a mountain to climb now with the clock ticking down.
Fovarg is absolutely on fire, finding half a second to smash his personal best and hunt down Stokes for the final podium spot.
He's finding time in every sector. Being 6/10 behind a pro like Stokes is impressive, but keeping that pace up under the dirty air is where we'll see what Dominic's really made of.
Tyus is trying to recover from that earlier drama, sitting in 8.5 seconds back from Robert Cormack.
He's nearly 10 seconds off his best pace on that last lap, so he's clearly struggling to get back into the flow. Cormack is right there for the taking, but Adam needs to settle his nerves first.
Tyus is losing more ground. That gap to Cormac has stretched out to nearly a full second now.
He's bleeding time. Whether it's damage from that earlier incident or just a loss of confidence, he's not making any inroads on Robert at the moment. He needs to find a second wind, and fast.
Fauvargue is relentless. Another purple lap for him, and he's hacked that gap to Stokes down to just 4/10.
He is driving out of his skin. A 1:22.1 is serious speed, and Stokes is going to be feeling the heat. If Dominic keeps this up, we're going to see a move for the podium very shortly.
Kosick is finding another gear, setting a new personal best as he chases Hallam for 5th.
6/10 the difference now. Daniel's really dialed in that radical through the mid-corner, and Hallam is going to have to find an answer to that pace if he wants to stay ahead.
Wait, the gap is ballooned. Hallam has suddenly pulled a 1.5 seconds clear of Kosick.
Kosick must have had a massive slide or a missed gear somewhere. He was right on him, but now Jareth has all the breathing room he could ask for with only a few minutes left.
Stokes is the one doing the hunting now, half a second back from Fauvargue, who's managed to jump him for 3rd.
Dominic's got the track position, but Chris is a pro for a reason. He's staying incredibly consistent, and you can bet he's watching where Fauvargue is weakest to plan his counterattack.
Nigel Walters is absolutely flying down in 10th, putting in a blistering 1:21.7.
That is a massive lap time, comfortably his best. He's closing in on Neil Constable-Berry at a rate of knots. If he maintains this pace, Neil is going to be under serious fire in the next couple of corners.
Walters is nibbling away at that lead. He's found another 10th on Neil Constable-Berry.
He's relentless. Getting that gap down to 6/10 means he's nearly within striking distance. One more strong exit and he'll be looking for the inside line.
Stokes just turned his fastest lap of the race, but Fauvargue has still managed to pull out a full second on him.
It's a high-speed chess match out there. Chris is finding more pace, but Dominic is responding to every single punch. That 1 second gap is a tough psychological barrier to break at this stage of the race.
Fauvargue is on another planet right now. A 1:21.5, and he's closing in on 2nd place.
He is absolutely reeling in David Constable-Berry. To drop a lap that fast while fighting for a podium is spectacular. He's got the momentum, and David's got to be watching that gap shrink on his dash.
David Constable-Berry has found a bit of a second win, stretching that lead back out to nearly a 1.5 seconds over Fauvargue.
That's exactly what David needed. He must have seen Dominic's purple sectors and pushed just that little bit harder to break the toe. It's a vital buffer as we get into the final stages.
Adam Tyus is desperately trying to hold on to 8th, but Neil Constable-Berry is right in his wheel tracks.
Tyus is doing a decent job of stabilizing his pace in the 23s, but with Neil only half a second back, he can't afford a single mistake. One missed apex, and that position is gone.
Matakis is down in 10th, but he hasn't given up, holding a steady 2nd behind Nigel Walters.
He's keeping the pressure on, lapping in the low 22s. 1 second is the limit of the slipstream in these radicals, so John needs to find a couple of tenths in the next sector to really make Nigel sweat.
Buntis is keeping Walters honest here. That gap is locked at exactly 1 second.
It is a stalemate at the moment. John is matching Nigel 10th for 10th, but as the clock runs down, he is going to have to start taking some bigger risks to get within lunging distance.
Stokes has found a massive turn of speed, setting a personal best with a 1:21.7.
He is driving like a man possessed, but Fauvargue is still keeping him at arm's length. Even with that blistering pace from Chris, the gap has actually grown slightly to over a second.
Fauvargue is under massive pressure now. He's dropped to fourth, and Jareth Hallam is practically touching his rear wing.
Jareth has done a brilliant job to get back into this. 3/10 is a dangerous gap for Dominic to manage. He's going to have to get very defensive if he wants to keep that fourth spot.
Hallam's done it. He snatched fourth away, and there's absolutely nothing between them as they go wheel to wheel.
0 seconds. You couldn't fit a sheet of paper between those two. Fovarg is trying to fight back immediately, but Hallam's positioned that radical perfectly to shut the door.
Bontakis is losing touch with the pack now. That gap to Walters has drifted out to over a second and a half.
The tires might be starting to go off on that radical. When you see the gap grow like that late in the race, it's usually a sign the front end just isn't biting, like it was on lap 1.
Hallam is back in fifth, but he is hounding Fovarg. Just 3/10 separates them now.
This is a proper seesaw battle. Jareth lost the place, but he stayed composed, using the slipstream to pull himself right back onto Dominic's gearbox. He's looking for any opening he can find.
Fovarg is doing just enough to stay ahead, stretching that lead by another 10th over Hallam.
Every inch matters here. Dominic is placing his car so well that Jareth just can't get the run he needs out of the corners. It's masterclass defending under extreme pressure.
Joel Lemrich is in a league of his own, rounding the final corners with a massive 7-second cushion over the rest of the field.
This has been a clinical performance. He's managed the gap to David Constable-Berry perfectly, and with only 20 seconds to go, he can almost taste the champagne.
Unbelievable. From 8th on the grid to the top step of the podium, Joel Lemrich takes the checkered flag and wins it.
That is an absolute masterclass in racecraft. To carve through a field of radicals like that without putting a foot wrong is world-class driving. He earned every bit of that victory today.
David Constable-Berry follows him home for a brilliant second place, another huge climber from 9th on the grid.
What a result for the Pro-Am driver. He stayed out of trouble at the start and showed incredible pace to secure that podium. That's a massive haul of points for his championship campaign.
And Chris Stokes secures the final spot on the podium, a massive recovery from 10th at the start.
He really showed his pro class today. It wasn't easy, and he had to fight for every single inch. But standing on that podium after starting 10th is a testament to his grit and consistency.
Fovarg and Hallam crossed the line almost inseparable in 4th and 5th, followed by Kotsis and Neil Constable-Berry.
What a scrap that was. Dominic had to work so hard to keep Hallam at bay, and Kotsis was right there waiting to pick up the pieces. Those four really put on a show for us in the mid-pack.
Nigel Walters brings it home in 8th with Bountakis, Cormac, and Tyus rounding out the finishers.
Tough day for Tyus after that early promise, finishing down in 11th. But for Walters and Bountakis, surviving that radical intensity to bag a top 10 finish is a solid day's work in this championship.
Chris Stokes is on their practice outlap, warming up the tires.
This outlap is crucial for setting up the car's systems and getting a feel for the track.
Only 8 minutes left on the clock, and Nigel Walters is still sitting in the garage without a time on the board.
He needs to get a move on. Every second he sat there is data he's losing on fuel loads and track evolution.
Still no time on the board for Chris Stokes, and that clock is ticking down under 8 minutes now.
He's cutting it fine. You can't just jump out and find the limit instantly. He's going to be rushing his outlap, and that's when mistakes happen.
Seven minutes to go, and Walters is still a ghost. On the timing screen, he's leaving himself a massive mountain to climb. Stokes is still playing the waiting game in the pits with about 6.5 minutes left to run.
This is risky. If there's a red flag or a yellow in a key sector, he's going to go into qualifying completely blind on his braking points.
Jareth Hallam hasn't posted a lap yet, and we are staring down the final 6 minutes of the session.
He's making life difficult for himself. Getting the tires up to temp takes a couple of laps alone, so Jareth is really up against it now.
Nigel Walters finally hits the timing beat, and he goes straight to the top with a 121.2. Daniel Kocic slots into P2, but he is over a second off the pace Walters just set. Walters is finding even more time out there, shaving off a few hundredths to cement that top spot.
He looks settled. When the car is hooked up like that, you aren't fighting the wheel, you're just guiding it. He's in a real flow state.
Robert Cormack is the outlier now, still hasn't registered a time with under 4 minutes remaining.
He's effectively going into the race weekend on the back foot. You can spend all day in the sim, but nothing beats actual rubber on the road to gauge the grip levels.
Three minutes and change left on the clock, and we are still waiting to see what Joel Lemrich can do out there. Walters is still the benchmark with that 121.2. Nobody seems to have an answer for him as we enter the final 3 minutes. Time is rapidly disappearing for Hallam, still no mark on the board with 2.5 minutes to go.
He's basically out of time. By the time he finishes an outlap, he'll have maybe one flying attempt. That is a massive amount of pressure to put on yourself this early.
Cormac is still a no-show on the timing sheets, and we're down to the final 2 minutes of practice. David Constable-Barry begins their outlap, feeling out the track conditions. Cormac finally gets a time in, a 1:23 dead, and he pops up into 4th place.
Cutting it very fine, but at least he's got something to work with. He's nearly 2 seconds off Nigel's pace, so there is still plenty of homework to do before the race.
Constable-Barry moves into 5th, but that 1:34 is well off the pace of the frontrunners. Ten seconds left on the clock, and Cormac has slipped down to 5th position as the session winds down.
He won't be happy with that. He left his run way too late and didn't give himself enough of a window to find those extra tenths. "20 seconds on the clock, and it looks like Neil Constable-Barry is going to finish this session without a single lap recorded. Cormac's drifted down to 6th now, with less than a minute to find an answer. The track is at its grippiest right now, so if he's not improving, he's just going backwards. It's all about managing that track evolution.
Constable Barry is sitting in 7th with 1:10 to go, but that gap to the leaders is looking more like a canyon right now. Early doors here at the start of qualifying, not known, just rolling out of the lane with almost a full 6 minutes to get those tires up to temperature.
Bountikis is leaving it late. With under 3 minutes on the clock, he's only got one, maybe two bites at the cherry before that checkered flag drops.
John Bountikis is absolutely flying on this second flyer, nearly a full second up on his previous best as he hunts down a spot further up the grid.
Cormac is digging deep now, 4 tenths up on his personal best. He needs to keep it tidy through the final sector if he wants to climb out of 10th.
Lemrick isn't sitting on his laurels. He's already on pole, but finding another quarter of a second out there as the clock ticks down to the final few seconds.
Fovargue is crossing the line with the clock at 0, and he is over 3 tenths up. This is the last chance to salvage a better starting position for the race.
Cormac is right on his own tail here, but he's stalled out on the delta. He needs to find a magic 10th in these closing moments to move up from 10th. Joel Lemrick has the inside track from pole.
Staying cool under pressure is crucial for Joel Lemrich.
Chris Stokes looks focused on that front row, sitting in P2 with the Radical State Route 3.
He is a serious pro-class talent, but starting on the dirty side of the grid means he will have to be perfect with the clutch to hold that position into the first turn.
David Constable-Barry lining up right behind the front row, putting that State Route 3 XXR into P3.
To be a Pro-Am driver and outqualify most of this pro field is a massive statement. If he can hang on to the back of Stokes at the start, he's going to make a lot of people nervous.
Dominic Fovarg rounds out the top 5, and keep an eye on him when those lights go out. Nigel Walters occupies the 3rd row in 6th, a fantastic showing for the AM-class runner.
He is punching well above his weight there. Starting in the middle of the Pro and Pro-Am pack is high risk, high reward. And Nigel needs to be incredibly clinical through those opening corners.
Right next to him is John Boontakas, making it an all-am 4th row as he looks to launch that radical from 7th. Adam Taya starts from 8th, looking to make up ground early on.
In these SR3s, the aero wash from the cars ahead is brutal. Adam's going to want to find some clean air as quickly as possible, or those front tires are going to cook. Robert Cormack starts from 10th, and in this field, that is a tough place to be if things get messy mid-pack.
Daniel Kosick lines up in 11th, slightly further back than he would have liked.
He is definitely out of position. The mission for Daniel is to stay patient because the drivers around him will be desperate to move up, and that is usually when the carbon fiber starts flying.
Wall of radicals screams toward the first corner. Joel Limrich nails the launch and keeps that nose out in front, exactly where he needs to be. Limrich hasn't missed a beat, holding that lead and already looking to break the toe.
Clean air is king in these radicals. If he can pull a second out now, he's going to make it very difficult for the pack to reel him back in.
Kosick is on the move early, picking up a spot and climbing into 10th. Fovarg holds firm in 5th, surviving that initial squeeze into the opening corners.
He played it smart there. In the first lap, you can't win the race, but you can certainly lose it by being too greedy on cold tires.
Dominic Fovarg is glued to the back of Jareth Hallam now. Just over half a second separates them as they hunt for a podium spot. Constable Barry is absolutely hounding the back of Kosick. There's barely a tenth between them with 10 minutes still on the clock. Kosick has managed to breathe a little, stretching that gap out to nearly a second over Constable Barry. Jareth Hallam is right in the gearbox of Fovarg. There is absolutely nothing between them. Hallam's had a disaster. He's dropped back to 7th and lost nearly 3 seconds to Fovarg.
He must have had a moment or caught a curve wrong through that last section. You can see the rhythm is gone. Now he has to settle down before he loses even more ground. John Boontakas is making moves, sitting in 5th and keeping Fovarg honest with a gap of just 6/10. Boonient is really finding his feet in this radical. Being within striking distance this early means he's got the pace to stay with the lead pack.
Bontakis is relentless, keeping that pressure on Dominic Fovarg and refusing to let that gap move past 6/10. David Constable-Berry is right on the tail of Stokes, half a second back and hunting for that second place. Stokes manages to find a little bit of breathing room, stretching that advantage out to 7/10 over Constable-Berry.
He used the slipstream to stay close, but now he's struggling in the technical sections. When you're following that closely, the front end just doesn't bite the same way, and David's feeling that understeer now.
Nigel Walters is keeping Bontakis well within his sights, 7/10 back and looking very comfortable in 6th.
He's keeping his nose clean and letting the race come to him. If those two ahead start squabbling, Nigel is perfectly placed to pick up the pieces.
Tox is still stalking Fovarg, holding that gap at 7/10 as they start lap 3.
He's being very disciplined. I can tell he's waiting for Dominic to miss an apex. At this pace, one small slip-up is all it takes for that 5-6 swap to happen.
Fovarg has really put the hammer down, pulling out over a second on Bontakis now.
That's a big jump in the gap. Dominic must have nailed the exit onto the straight, while John looks like he's just lost the toe. Once you lose that slipstream here, the gap grows exponentially.
Walters is all over the back of Bontakis, only 3/10 in it as they head into the braking zone. Bontakis responds to the threat, inching that lead back up to 6/10 over Nigel Walters. Daniel Kosick is closing in on Hallam. 7th place is just 7/10 up the road.
Kosick is definitely the faster car at this stage of the race. He's taking much tighter lines, while Jarrett looks like he's fighting the car a bit more under braking.
Hallam manages to find an extra 10th of breathing room, keeping Kosick at bay for now. Adam Tias is right on the gearbox of Robert Cormack, just 3/10 back and looking for a way through.
This is a classic battle for 10th. Tias is showing him the nose in the mirrors, trying to force Robert into a mistake. It's all about who blinks first here.
Tias has done it. He gets the move done on Cormack and moves up into the top 10, though there is still nothing between them. Daniel Kosic is incredibly consistent, matching his best lap almost to the 1,000th as he chases Hallam. The gap is shrinking again. Kosick has reeled Hallam in and is now just 6/10 back. Well, it looks like we have a bit of a traffic jam on the track.
It's like rush hour out there. I mean, I know we're in a race, but can't we all just get along?
Ha ha! I don't think that's how it works. These drivers are here to win, and they'll do whatever it takes to get ahead.
I guess you're right. But wouldn't it be great if they all just stopped for a cup of tea and a chat? We could have a lovely little race reunion.
Kosic just set his fastest lap of the race, but Hallam found some pace too as the gap opens up to nearly a second. Daniel Kosic is chipping away at that lead again, bringing it back down to 6/10.
This is the ebb and flow of a proper slipstream battle. He loses it in the corners but drags it back on the straights. He just needs to be close enough to make a dive into the next heavy braking zone.
Fovarg is on a flyer. He just clocked a personal best, and he's within 7/10 of the final podium spot.
He's smelling blood now. Constable-Berry has been defensive for a while, and Dominic is finding much better exits out of the slow stuff. This podium fight is far from over.
Hallam's dropped behind. He's now the one doing the hunting, just 4/10ths back from Kosick.
He won't be happy about that. He had the position, but Kosick must have muscled his way past. Jared needs to keep his head and use that slipstream to fight right back.
The gap is growing. Kosick is starting to pull away and now leads Hallam by 7/10ths.
Kosick has found his rhythm in clear air. If Jared can't close this back up in the next lap, he's going to lose the benefit of that toe entirely.
Fovarg is under massive pressure here. Bountikis is right on his gearbox, just 2/10ths back. Fovarg manages to stretch that gap out to 6/10ths, giving himself a bit of breathing room over Bountikis.
That's smart driving. He's prioritizing his exits to make sure John can't get alongside on the straights. It's all about managing the gap at this stage.
It is absolute war between Kosick and Hallam. There is literally no gap between them as they battle for 7th.
They are practically side by side. This is exactly the kind of wheel-to-wheel racing you want to see. But one tiny overlap of tires, and they're both going for a ride.
Hallam gets him back. Jareth retakes 7th place, but Kosick is still only 2/10ths behind.
What a scrap. This is high-stakes chess at 150 miles per hour. Kosick will be looking for the switchback immediately.
David Constable-Berry has slipped to 4th and now has Bontakis hounding him, only 4/10ths back. Bontakis has lost touch with the car ahead. That gap to Constable-Berry has blown out to a 1.5 seconds.
He must have had a massive slide through the last turn. You can see him having to work the wheel a lot more now. I wonder if those rear tires are starting to give up on him.
It's a disaster for Bontakis. He's tumbled down to 8th, and the gap to the leaders is now over 6 seconds. Hallam is still right there, stalking Daniel Kosick with less than half a second between them. Hallam is closing in. He's got that gap down to just 3/10ths now.
He's definitely found a better line through the middle sector. He's gaining a lot under braking, putting Kosick under immense pressure to hit every single apex perfectly.
Neil Constable-Berry is chasing down Bountikis, keeping the gap at 6/10ths as they work through lap 8.
Bontakis is clearly struggling after that earlier incident, and Neil can see it. He just needs to stay patient and wait for the inevitable opening.
Constable-Berry is all over him. 2/10ths of a second is all that's left of Bontakis' lead in 8th.
He's close enough to see the sponsor logos on that rear wing. This is where you have to be careful not to overshoot the braking zone while trying to make a move.
Bountikis has lost another spot. He's down to 9th now and trying to stay within 4/10ths of Neil Constable-Berry.
That lap time was nearly 9 seconds off his best. Something is seriously wrong. Whether it's damage or just a complete loss of confidence, he's a sitting duck out there right now.
Neil Constable-Berry has made the move stick, moving up to 8th with Bontakis still hounding him 3/10ths back. Wait, what happened? Neil Constable-Berry has dropped back to 9th, and Bountikis is suddenly 5 seconds up the road.
He must have gone off or had a massive spin. To lose that much time in such a short window suggests a trip to the grass. That's a bitter pill to swallow after doing the hard work to get past.
Jareth Hallam is holding on to 7th. but Bounticus has recovered some ground and is only 7/10ths back.
It's a game of survival now as we get into the closing stages. Tires will be thin, and the track is probably feeling a bit greasy. Hallam needs to be smooth to keep that advantage.
Hallam's fallen back. He's dropped to 8th, and the gap to Bounticus has suddenly widened to nearly 4 seconds.
This race is throwing up surprises every lap. Jareth looks like he's struggling for grip, and Bounticus has found a second win. 4 seconds is a mountain to climb with so little time left.
Joel Lemrich is just 20 seconds away from glory, holding a commanding 4-second lead over Chris Stokes.
He's driven a flawless race from the front, managing the pace and the gap with a seasoned veteran. He's earned every bit of this win.
Joel Lemrich crosses the line to take the win. A dominant lights to flag victory for the man who started on pole.
Perfect execution. He stayed out of the chaos, controlled the tempo, and didn't put a foot wrong. That is how you close out a championship caliber drive.
Chris Stokes brings it home in second, securing a fantastic podium finish from the front row.
What a drive from Dominic Fovard, fighting his way from 5th to grab that final spot on the podium.
The rest of the lead pack streams across the line, with Constable Berry in 4th, Walters 5th, Kosick 6th, and Bounticus 7th.
Great recovery from Bounticus to salvage 7th after that mid-race scare, and a huge result for Nigel Walters holding on to 5th in that company.
Jareth Hallam finishes 8th, followed by Neil Constable Berry, while Adam Tyus and Robert Cormack round out our top 11 finishers. Robert Cormack is poised for success from pole. Front row start for Adam Tyus, putting that Radical State Route 3 right in the mix for the AM class honors. Right behind him, Neil Constable Berry locks down 3rd, making it an all-British second row in those State Route 3S.
He's in a prime spot to capitalize if the leaders get elbows out into turn 1. You want to be the hunter in these radicals, not the hunted.
Jareth Hallam lines up in 4th, the lead Pro-Am entry today, and he is looking to disrupt those AM drivers right ahead of him.
He'll be aggressive. In these XXRs, if you don't get the jump early, you're just eating dirty air and cooking your fronts for the rest of the sprint.
Daniel Kosick starts from the 3rd row, looking to bring some Hungarian heat to this Pro-Am battle in the State Route 3.
Nigel Walters has some work to do from 7th. He's got to find a way past that Pro-Am traffic if he wants to see the podium.
David Constable Berry rounds out the top 8. He is going to have his mirrors full of radicals the moment those lights go out. Dominic Fovard starts from 9th, and he'll be looking to slice through that mid-pack chaos early on.
It's a tough spot to be in. You're right in the wash of the cars ahead, so Dominic needs to be clinical with his braking points to avoid any lap 1 drama.
Closing out the top 10, we have our sole pro driver, Chris Stokes, and he is certainly starting further back than he would have liked.
He has the raw pace, but starting 10th means he is stuck behind a lot of drivers who will be very wide on the opening lap. He cannot afford to get bogged down if he wants to win this.
Green flag, a radical screen off the line, and it is a drag race into the first braking zone. Cormac gets the launch he needed, holding that lead and immediately trying to break the toe.
Clean start from Robert. He's hit every apex perfectly so far, which is exactly how you settle the nerves when you're leading the pack away.
Fovarg's dropped a spot early, slipping back to 10th as the pack settles into its rhythm.
Dominic won't be happy with that. He likely got boxed in at the start and had to lift, losing all his momentum on the exit.
Huge shuffle for Neil Constable-Barry. He started on the second row, but he's tumbled down to 6th before even completing a lap. Unbelievable. David Constable-Barry has leaped from 8th on the grid all the way to 5th, and he's now the one leading the family battle.
Neil is staring at the back of his relative's radical now. That gap is less than a second. He needs to get his head down, because losing 3 spots that quickly is a massive psychological blow.
Dominic Fovarg is absolutely hounding the back of Stokes, just 3/10 in it with 10 minutes on the clock.
He's keeping Chris honest here. At this pace, Fovarg is looking for any slight mistake to poke that nose up the inside and reclaim those lost positions.
Stokes has managed to find some breathing room, pulling half a second clear as he moves up into 6th place.
Fovarg is still right there, but Stokes is using that Pro Class experience to pick off the cars ahead. Dominic has to stay glued to that gearbox or he'll lose the slipstream.
Hallam is practically under the rear wing of Daniel Kosic. There's barely a 10th between them in this fight for second.
Hallam pulls it off. He's muscled his way past into P2, but Kosic hasn't gone anywhere. He's still right there in the wheel tracks.
Kosic isn't letting Hallam escape, staying within 2/10 as they push these radicals to the absolute limit.
This is a classic counterattack. When you lose a spot like that, you have to stay close to pressure them into a mistake at the next heavy braking zone. Daniel's doing exactly that.
Hallam is starting to stretch his legs now. The gap has opened up to half a second over Daniel Kosic.
Kosic might have overcooked the entry on that last sequence. Half a second is just enough to break the toe in these cars. And that's the last thing you want on this run.
Fovarg is putting the pressure on Lemrick now, 3/10 the gap as they cross the line to start lap 2. Joel Emmerich is just managing to hold him off, widening that gap slightly to 0.4 of a second.
Dominic is looking for a way through, but Lemrich is placing that radical perfectly. It's frustrating when you're quicker but just can't find a clean lane to make a move.
Joel Lemrich has gained a spot and is now up to 6th. But Neil Constable-Berry is right on his gearbox, only 0.3 back.
Neil is desperate to recover from that poor start. He's much faster through the mid-corner. You can see him having to lift just to avoid tagging Joel's rear bumper.
Daniel Kosick has dropped to 4th, and he's now glued to the back of David Constable-Berry, just 0.2 between them.
Kosick is looking for blood here. He lost that podium spot, and he's using every inch of the curbs to try and force David into a defensive line.
David Constable-Berry has absolutely checked out. That gap has ballooned to over a second, leaving Daniel Kosick with a mountain to climb if he wants that podium back.
Neil Constable-Berry is stalking Fovard now, 0.4 back, and looking much more settled as we head into the second half of this sprint.
Fovard is managing the gap well, stretching it out to half a second and keeping Neil just out of striking distance.
It's that high-speed cat-and-mouse game. One small lockup from Dominic and Neil will be alongside him in a heartbeat.
David Constable-Berry is holding on to that final podium spot, keeping Hallam in his sights about 0.9 up the road.
He's keeping it steady, but he needs to find a few tenths if he wants to mount a real challenge for P2 before the clock runs out.
Kosick has slipped another position, now down to 5th, chasing down Dominic Fovard with just 0.4 between them.
Daniel's race is going backwards right now. He's got to stop the bleed and get past Fovard quickly, or those leaders are going to be out of reach entirely.
He's done it. Kosick fights back and retakes 4th place, putting 0.4 of daylight between himself and Fovard. The drivers have been working hard to come up with the perfect race strategy. They've been looking at the weather, the track conditions, and the performance of their cars.
Now it's time to put that strategy into action and see if it pays off. Fovard isn't letting Kosick get away, though, keeping the gap under a second as they power through this lap.
Dominic is nibbling away at that lead, bringing the gap down to 0.6 of a second.
This is the mental game now. If Fovard can just keep applying this pressure, he might force Kosick into a mistake under braking.
David Constable-Berry is solidly in 3rd, but the gap to Hallam has ticked over the 2nd mark now.
He's driving a lonely race in P3, but he can't afford to relax. In these radicals, if the rear tires start to go, that 2nd can vanish in just a couple of corners.
Steady as she goes for David, maintaining that gap at a 2nd and 0.1, just trying to bring this podium home. Nigel Walters is right in the slipstream of Chris Stokes, just 0.7 back as they battle for 6th.
Walters is pushing hard, but Stokes is a savvy defender. He'll be making that radical as wide as possible to protect his line.
Nothing between them as they stay locked at 0.7. Walters is looking for any opening Stokes might leave. David Constable-Berry is falling further back from Hallam, the gap stretching out to over a 2nd and a 3rd.
He might be thinking about the championship points now, rather than the heroics. Bringing it home in 3rd is a great result given where he started.
Wait, look at this. David Constable-Berry has found a second win and slashed the gap to Jareth Hallam to just 0.8.
He's absolutely flying now. He must have nailed that last sector because he's suddenly right back in this fight for second place.
Daniel Kosick is all over the back of Chris Stokes, less than half a second in it as they fight for 5th place. He's through. Kosick takes 5th, but Stokes is hanging right on his tail, only 1/10 of a second behind.
That was a clinical move from Daniel. He positioned his car perfectly to take the line away from Stokes. Now he's got to defend like his life depends on it.
Nigel Walters is side by side with Stokes. There's absolutely nothing between them as they charge down the straight.
This is wheel-to-wheel racing at its finest. Nigel has the inside line. Let's see if he can hold his nerve and complete the overtake.
David Constable-Berry has closed right up on Hallam, just 0.6 of a second, separating the two for second place. Disaster for David Constable-Berry. He was right there, and now he's nearly 7 seconds back.
He must have had a massive moment, or a spin. To lose 6 seconds in one go is heartbreaking when you've just put in your best lap of the race.
Stokes is trying to reclaim 6th from Nigel Walters, sitting just 0.4 back as the race enters its final stages.
Chris is a pro-class driver. He won't be happy being behind Nigel. You can see him trying different lines, looking for a way to maximize his exit speed.
Nigel Walters has put some serious distance between himself and Stokes, opening that gap up to over a second and a third. Stokes is trying to respond, nibbling 1/10 back, but Nigel is still holding a healthy 1.2 second lead.
Nigel's found a real rhythm. If he can keep hitting those apexes, Stokes is going to run out of laps before he can make a move.
Stokes is falling back again. That gap to Nigel Walters is out to a second and 3/10 now.
He looks like he's struggling with the rear of the car on corner exit. Those tires might be starting to go off, making it impossible to chase Nigel down.
Wait, Stokes is back in it. He's halved that gap to Nigel Walters, now just 7/10 behind. Jareth Hallam is hunting for the win. He's just 6/10 behind Adam Tyus as we approach the final minutes.
Stalemate at the front. Hallam is matching Tyus 10th for 10th, waiting for even the slightest bobble from the leader.
Stokes is within half a second of Nigel Walters now. This battle for 6th is going right down to the wire.
Chris is using every bit of road and then some. He knows he's running out of time, so expect him to be very late on the brakes into the next big corner.
He's closing. Stokes is now just 4/10 behind Walters. You can practically smell the exhaust from that radical. Nigel Walters has moved up to 5th, but Stokes is right there, just 2/10 back and looking for a way through. Nigel has managed to break the immediate pressure, pulling 6/10 clear of Chris Stokes.
Great defensive driving there. He didn't panic, hit his marks, and forced Stokes to take a suboptimal line through that complex.
Adam Tyus is 20 seconds from glory, but Jareth Hallam is looming large in those mirrors, only 4/10 back.
He's got to keep it absolutely pinned. One missed apex now, and Hallam will snatch this right at the death.
Adam Tyus takes the checkered flag. From second on the grid to the top step of the podium, what a drive.
He earned that one. To soak up that kind of pressure from Hallam in the closing stages and not put a foot wrong, that's championship caliber stuff.
Jareth Hallam crosses the line for a superb second place, moving up from fourth to secure a massive haul of Pro-Am points. David Constable-Barry completes the podium in third, an incredible recovery after starting all the way back in eighth.
Driver of the day for me. To fight through the pack like that and survive that late race scare to keep P3, he should be very proud of that shift.
The rest of the field floods across the line, with Fauvargue leading home Walters, Stokes, and Neil Constable-Barry to round out the top 7. And Daniel Coaches brings it home in 8th place to finish off his session.
It's been a tough day at the office for Daniel. He showed flashes of real speed, but it just didn't quite come together for him in the end.